Okay, we're going to have a conversation about the number 10. The number 10 is the number of the radiant body. It's about power, leadership, authority, the strength of your conviction, making choices and decisions that affect other people. So when you get a number 10, where it is in your yogic numerology system, you want to be the boss, the leader, the king, the queen, the general, the poobah, the head honcho. You want to be the person in charge. You want to be the person making the decisions. You want to construct it in your own way, in your own hourly rate, however you want to do it. So it's a leadership number. Some of the numbers don't mind being a minion and like a gopher person, but the tens really don't like that. So the tens want to be the lions. They want to be super strong. They want to be Alexander the Great. They want to do something fantastic and amazing. They want to leave an input in the world. They want to change something. So there's a lot of magnetism and charisma with the number 10. There's a lot of force and drive that's associated with the number 10. So there's a lot of power here. Part of the game is learning how to harness that power, how to work with that consciously, safely, and constructively. You'll hear me say that over and over again. So I've learned in all the lessons that I put these videos out because, yes, you have certain numerological sequences that you came in to karmically work on, or you carry from other lifetimes forward, or it's part of your path in this lifetime, or it's ultimately where you're going as your destiny. But what I love about the numbers is that I think it's good to know all the numbers, because I think at any moment, each of us needs to step into our power, or we need to listen to our intuition. I think there are moments that we need to become much more conscious of utilizing the energy of a particular frequency or number and moving it forward. So when we're dealing with the number 10, which is a 1 and a 0, whenever you add a 0 to anything, it magnifies the original number. So in the video that's going to be about the number 1 is about individuality. Okay, so then you add power, which is the 0, to individuality, you get leadership. Okay, so it's a person that can step up. In numerology, you can have people that collapse out of a 10 and they kind of strip away the 0 and fall into the 1. And that happens a lot, okay? You can tell by looking at somebody. So the number 1 is the number of humility. It's associated with the Dalai Lama. So it is humble, compassionate, kind, wants to support the growth of the individual. I always think of the song, "One is the loneliest number one," right? So, there's a loneliness to the 1 because you have to step away from groups. You have to find out who you are first. But then when you find out who you are and you feel empowered, you add the 0 and then you get the 10. But there are people that say have a karma of 10. So they're working on it. They need to work on power, but they walk into a family situation that's terrible and abusive, and they've got alcoholic parents or whatever, and that the environment of their childhood can collapse the 10. They can strip the 0 away from it, which abusive people do. They try and take power from people, and that happens all the time. Like, there's always this weird energy running around. People take power. And so there are parasitic people that also take power, and so they can strip the power away, and then you end up with this person who is collapsed, vulnerable. They feel like a victim, which is the most negative side of the number 1, and they aren't doing their power at all. And so you say to them, your karma is to stand up. Your karma is to stand up for yourself. It's so important that you find something that you feel very passionate about, that you feel strong about, that you feel your heart shines, and that when you talk about this subject, you feel so wonderful and inspired, and you feel like you can help people. And they'll oftentimes be collapsed and go into the victim and say, "Oh, well, nobody will ever listen to me. Nobody will really ever care about what I say." So there's this challenge sometimes to take a person who has a karma of 10, and they must empower themselves as the individual all over again. They have to find their own grounding cord. They have to find their own center of stability and then move into that place of power. But power can be used negatively, obviously. So power can be used destructively. It can harm people. And so it's also very important when you look at somebody, are they being an egomaniac? Because you can have people that are, and you can have people that are doing a little bit of both. When I worked in Beverly Hills for many years, I was amazed at how many people were tens. And they were tens. I mean, they were powerful and they were film producers or directors or actors, and they had all this power and radiance and magnetism and, a name. And, they were a force. They were absolutely a force to be reckoned with. And yet they had a house with a big wall around it. And when you went into their house, they actually felt really vulnerable. They actually, they had a persona that went out into the world, usually from a character that they played in a film, and that say they had to be Luke Skywalker or something. And so they're like, dun, dun, dun. And then, but personally, they had a lot more insecurity going on there. And so you can actually see people running both of those simultaneously. So to me, it's important to honor both the 1 and the 10, to maybe go roto-rooting for what's the value of being a powerful, influential person in the world that is very humble and vulnerable. The perfect example is the Dalai Lama, right? Because the number 1 is associated with the Dalai Lama. So nobody would assume the Dalai Lama isn't incredibly powerful, but he's not pompous. He's not arrogant. In fact, he's really funny and he's really down to earth and he's really sensitive and he's super kind and considerate and, just like a child, that innocence of a child, and bright-eyed and excited to connect with somebody. So there's the sweetness and the innocence of the number 1. And yet there's this force that he is, which is the Dalai Lama, because he is the fragment, he is the reincarnation of a fragment of the God of compassion. So if you were being the God of compassion, would you be an asshole? And the answer is, of course, no. I mean, you would be humble and you would be authentic. So you can also see that if you know and own and utilize power really constructively and really effectively and really kindly for the greater good, it actually ends up being humble. It actually ends up being authentic. It doesn't have a lot of pretense. And so I had this client many years ago in Beverly Hills, and he had like $1 million polo ponies. Okay. And so he went to the Beverly Hills Hotel with his polo ponies directly because he had a meeting. And, he basically, just turned to the guy that was for the cars, right? And he was just like, just leave my polo ponies here, right? So he went into the meeting and, this guy was flashing his watch, I'm so powerful. I'm the 10. I've got this, super expensive watch, blah, blah, blah. And I'll never forget my friend's response. I mean, he basically said, you know what real power is? He said, real power is when you actually don't need to know what time it is. I love that. That cracked me up so much when he told me that. I was like, oh my gosh, that is so hysterical, because that's real power. Real power is not arrogant. It's not flashy. It's not self-important. It's not look at me, I have to be so special, right? It's that you just do what you need to do. You do what is required of you. You do what is for the greater good. You don't just do what is for yourself, but you also see the bigger picture and you try and include things in the bigger picture. So what I always love is when you get people who do make a lot of money for whatever reason, the Bill Gates, the Richard Greers, that they are famous people and then they move towards helping the world in some way, that they have organizations that bring education, or they try and help, heal conflicts with countries. And so they use their power in a humble way to serve those that are being humiliated, okay, which is again the number 1. And I feel like that is something that, one of the reasons, like I said, we're doing these videos is that I want people to start to relate numerological archetypes with what's happening in the world, and to not be impressed by arrogance, power, and flash, okay? Because underneath all that flash is deep insecurity. So the bigger you have to present yourself and the more you need strokes, people telling you that you're amazing, the more insecure you actually are, because you need all this bolstering, okay? And so I want people to start to see beyond the veil, see beyond the persona that the person is presenting, because there are a lot of people who have a karma of 10 that present really, really strong, but inside, they maybe are not the nicest person on the inside. And so finding that balance inside, to me, is an important thing, so that we see, and I said this in another video, if you can't see someone's shadow, if you can't see what their personality is hiding, you probably shouldn't be trusting them. You actually probably shouldn't be trusting them in that particular area. The louder somebody is, the more they're pushing a 10, the more suspicious you should be. Really, really. So, I can tell you that the people that impress me are the people that are powerful externally in the world and very humble and sincere and authentic when you really sit down and talk to them. That they are vulnerable and they are sincere. They're very sincere, and that they know they need to move their power for the greater good, and that the universe has given them this power. So what are they going to do with it? And people that use power only for themselves, only to serve themselves, are baby souls. I'm sorry, that's just the truth. They're baby souls. They haven't understood the natural give and take of life. Like, the universe will give you an opportunity, and you have an opportunity to work with that in a way that serves. And if you don't serve well with the number 10, trust me, you won't get the 10 again. I can't tell you how many people in their numerological patterns have, say, a gift of 10 from past lives. They've been very powerful in past lives, or a soul of 10, which means in their last lifetime they were very, very powerful, and in this lifetime they're not, and they are mad. They're like, I'm supposed to have everything I want, and I'm like, well, you did in your last lifetime, and now you have this lesson. And sometimes that lesson it indicates, because of the karma of the person, that they were an arrogant, headstrong, difficult, stubborn-minded, willful, opinionated, power-hungry, manipulative person. And the universe goes, yeah, now you're not going to get that. We gave you a chance. We gave you an opportunity. And now you're going to learn humility. Now you're going to learn about your negativity. Now you're going to be faced with the karma that you generated and you created. It's going to come back at you. And they're like, I don't know why people always hate me, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, because you're being arrogant and you're being difficult and you're being headstrong and you're being willful and you're opinionated and you think you're always right, and you're not being authentic, sincere, and humble. And so it's interesting how the numbers teach these lessons to bring you into awareness of maybe some of your potential glitches that have happened in other lifetimes. So the number 10 in a woman will give her a tremendous amount of power, like Xena, warrior princess. A man, obviously, it's like Alexander the Great. So, a woman that has a lot of 10s in her numbers, she's not going to take a lot of shit from any man. I'm sorry. It's like, God help the man who tries to tell her what to do, right? And unfortunately, a woman with a lot of 10s needs a man probably with a lot of 10s or a lot of 4s, which is really neutral, to be able to counterbalance that intensity, because she's intense, okay? And she'll be a CEO of a corporation. And men, same thing, CEO of a corporation, really powerful, really, really strong. So this is a beautiful number. It's a powerful number. It's kind of like Bo Derek and the perfect 10. It has a tremendous value to it. And at the same time, there's cautionary things with it. It's sort of like you're being given the opportunity of power. What are you doing with it? Are you harming people with it just to get your jollies off, which we see in the world a lot right now? Are you doing it, for self-importance? Are you doing it for personal gain? Because if you are, I look at the world right now and I just go, boy, I so do not want to be that person in the next lifetime. Like the karmic backlash of doing that much bad stuff to cause so much suffering for so many people is so enormous that, I mean, personally, I'm trying to get rid of my karma. I'm not trying to create more karma. I am trying to alleviate my own consciously, safely, and constructively. And I hope that these videos help you guys do that too. Okay, we'll go on to the number 11.